Welcome, everyone, to the Union Federation podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And we are discussing Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 1, Grounded, and Episode 2, The Least Dangerous Game. And I'd like to bring my guest here, as always, with me, my brother from another mother, and the fellow co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, Mr. Kyle Wagner.
Kevin, you are my prey. Plus, I have an extra setting of stamina because I just rolled a 20 on this live die, which gave me an extra stamina because of extra Klingon blood wine. So,
well, I'm just going to say that I've never understood the star dates. We'll talk about that later. All right. And with us, coming back from a strange land called STLV, welcome, Miss Amy Nelson. What is up?
Well, hello. My captain logs will be a little bit better than Boimler's. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, do we need to know what your natural hair color is? I don't know if we do. First of all, I just want to say we're going through
as Kevin was about to say, yes, he just froze up. They're going through a massive heat wave in California right now.
It is causing havoc. Yeah, see, it just happened right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just saying, letting
Kyle,
everybody know you're going.
Yes, Kyle.
I was just you had frozen up on us, so I was just letting everybody know about the heat wave you're going through.
Yeah, it's pretty tough right now. So if we're having a little bit of technical issues, Kyle, you just take over there. So
which is really quite interesting because I'm living in Las Vegas and you guys seem to be having the heat troubles.
Yeah, because we don't all have central air like you guys do.
Yeah.
But what we want to do is get into some fun here. Amy, of course, you are over there at the BQN, and the BQN was having some party at STLV. So let's get into some fun here. All right, Amy, you are at STLV. What is going on? How are you doing?
Oh my goodness. What an amazing convention. The actors came out. The fans were all there. Sold out crowd. It was at Bally's Convention Center instead of at the Rio. So there were definitely some pros and cons to having it there. But the fans just came out. I unfortunately had to work Thursday and Friday. So I showed up in the after parties and dinners and stuff like that. But what an amazing experience. The vendor room was amazing. They all came out. It was a smaller space, so it was tighter. They had some of the actors with big, long lines, and that disrupted the flow of the vendors room. So that wasn't really too good. But the photo ops outside of the first day, after the first day, ran pretty seamless. It was great.
That's awesome. I heard some cool stuff about that. Of course, you got to see our good friend Norman from the Mission Log podcast, and of course, going way back to when he was with us at the Fandom Podcast Network. How was it seeing Norman again?
Absolutely wonderful. I got to spend two good conversations with him on 2 separate days. So really good to see him. We reminisced on time back on Trek FM and how we both got started podcasting and met new people. And he introduced me to some of his friends and I introduced him to some of mine. So it was all very good. So good to see Norm again. Love you, Norm.
No. Now you are wearing your Lower Decks uniform tunic there. That looks really sharp.
Yeah, there were a lot of cosplay as usual. Oh my gosh. Someone had crocheted or knitted the dolphins from TNG.
I saw some
so cute.
I saw some pretty good pictures coming from there. I thought was cool. I liked someone, they had the Star Trek probe from Star Trek 4, like a big kind of hat set up. and he had like the little ball kind of hanging down from it. I don't know if you saw that there, but I thought that was really funny.
Shoot. No, I didn't. I did cosplay. I have the red jumper from Troy. So I was in that red one. And then I was walking around the vendor's room and there was a Deanna Troy in the light purple. So I was like, oh my gosh, I have to take a picture with you. So we took a picture and then other people were walking. They're like, oh, can I get a picture with you guys too? So we sort of were stopped for a couple of pictures.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I had a good friend of mine, Chris. He and I go way back to the Star Trek card game playing days with the Cypher. And he went there as a fan, did some gaming and got some autographs and pictures. And he got a picture with Shatner. He thought it was really cool. All he said was that he felt there was a little lack of, volunteers, because some of the line, I guess, organization could have used a little more help. But other than that, he said he had a good time.
Good. Yeah, I heard, that first day there weren't enough volunteers or people helping, and Creation kept saying, just let us know if you need any help. And then there was no one around to get help from. So,
right. Yeah.
So I have a question. As far as, conventions are starting to come back a little bit to life after the pandemic and everything like that. How was the attendance for STLV this year? I mean, did it feel like we're back and we're here now?
Yeah, and that may be because it's a smaller venue, so there were less tickets, but it was very cram-packed, I felt. There were a lot of people there. The convention space, it was on the main floor, and then they had sort of like the secondary rooms, like the Roddenberry stage and the secondary stage. What did they call it? Anyways, the DeForest Kelley stage, that was on floor 26. So the convention space was sort of split into two, and that took away some of the cohesiveness. There wasn't the big Trek brand, in part because they don't have the license, but there weren't any prop pieces. There weren't like they would have backdrops where you can take your pictures, transporter, Borg regeneration. None of that was there. It was very sterile. It didn't have the Trek theme that we're used to seeing at STLV.
Do you think that there's a lot of room for improvement? It'll get better since it's going to be there here going out, I guess, or going on?
Yeah. So next year it will be back at the Rio, but I'm almost wondering because they don't have the copyright or, the brand, the Star Trek brand.
Interesting. Well, cool. Well, it sounds like still, as always, I know how much you love your Trek family, and I saw how much fun you were having in your pictures, and it was great. It was nice.
Yeah. That's why you go, is for this Trek family. Yeah.
This is true. Yeah. These conventions nowadays, whenever I go to them, they just become like a family affair, a family of friends and people that you haven't seen in a while, a great little reunion. So, well, that is awesome. Okay. So, we got a lot to get into here, so let's hit that quantum drive. Let's hit our segment 2 number here. All right, we are going into our first away mission here because what I decided to do this time was have an away mission for each of these episodes because we're going to be covering these every 2 weeks and doing 2 episodes back to back here. So our first away mission is the episode 1 of season 3 called Grounded. Episode aired August 25th, and we have a episode mission log synopsis. Would you like to do that there, Amy?
Yes, and this did air during the convention, so that was wonderful.
Kyle, quick mention.
Question. Amy, can you do your Captain Log synopsis as Boimler style?
That's asking a lot of her. That's tough.
It is. So, Mariner stews on Earth. Her father, Admiral Alonzo Freeman, tries to convince her to trust the system, but the tribunal is taking frame-up evidence seriously, and Mariner is convinced it's a kangaroo court. Therefore, she commits herself to finding evidence that will exonerate her mother. After putting the band back together, Mariner, Boimler, Tendy, and Rutherford get on the Cerritos, where Boimler's captain's log proves the frame-up. However, Mariner resolves to steal the Cerritos and track down whoever sold the Packleds the Veruvian bomb. This ends unexpectedly. Captain Freeman returns to the Cerritos, inadvertently saving the 4 ensigns who are about to hit a situation they can't talk their way out of. She explains that the entire thing was a false flag operation. She agrees to go on trial, while a Starfleet task force under Captain Batesman confirmed she had been framed. Mariner's entire plan was all for nothing. Her military maverick attitudes and unwillingness to trust authority are finally placed front and center. If she's to remain in Starfleet, her parents agree she is going to have to pass the standards of the toughest officer any of them know, Commander Jack Ransom.
Also the best set of abs in the galaxy. All right, guys. This was, of course, wrapping up what we saw in the season finale last season, the little cliffhanger that we had there. And I wanted to get your guys' first reactions to this. Amy, let's start with you.
Okay, my first reaction was when they went to Montana and you'd hear the swell of the First Contact music. I teared up and I was like, is this, oh my gosh, it's First Contact, and all the amazing carnival, fun, yet respectful way that they approached and all the things that we saw. Absolutely loved it. It was hands down my favorite part. That music, the swell, everything. It was really good to also sort of see Carol Freeman as she's describing, and they do this hand-drawn courtroom. Totally made me think of Measure of a Man, and just like, well, she's off doing that, but what are the lower decks doing? And we got to see. So we didn't get a courtroom drama that we all love. We got lower decks courtroom drama.
I got to tell you, that attraction of the Vulcan ship there in Montana, you get to slide down. That looks like a lot of fun. Kyle, your first reactions to Grounded.
There's so many things and so many little points to bring up. But first of all, I got to know, if Bradward's Vineyard needs an extra fill-in for him while he's out on duty, I'm all in there. I'm just saying, I volunteer. I'm pulling a Malloy, volunteering for that position.
And why was that, Kyle?
It seems like there was a lot of ladies who needed a lot of help on that vineyard. That's all I'm going to say.
You mean like Genevieve?
Yeah.
Or Leanne, maybe.
I just want to be a gentleman and help these ladies in distress. That's all I'm saying.
They're drying wine.
They're not making wine, right? They're drying grapes.
They're making raisins, baby. Also, too, guys, do we really truly want to know what Boimler's natural hair color is? I'm just, that I'm a little curious about that as well. So. But no, this was just such a fun episode. Everything with First Contact that was going on was great. Just so many great things. Never let Mariner around plant life because it doesn't work out well for her.
Yeah, keep her away from my patio because that's all those plants in containers.
I think Kevin is having a little bit more problems with his California Warp Core at the moment, so we're going to kind of keep the ball rolling here. In fact, I think I see his engineering staff working hard. Kevin? There he is. Scott, Scotty got you worked out again for at least a couple minutes?
Yeah, I had to go down to the lower decks and, kick a few things. So there you go.
No, so I'll just real quick, let me ask you, Kevin, one of the points I brought up was, do we truly need to know Boimler's natural hair color?
No.
Is this a great mystery now? Yeah.
No, that's fine.
No.
So, did you have any other initial thoughts, Kyle?
As I was saying, I loved all the stuff with First Contact. I thought that was great, and we should never allow Mariner near pod plant life either. So
that was a fun scene. I noticed straight off about how many different callbacks and Easter eggs and stuff that was going on. A couple of things I want to mention was, it seems like I might have been a Boimler back in the day when I didn't really realize, you know, what girls were really meaning when they were saying certain things. And I was going like, dude, really? Are you that blind? I love the Carrollton Dennis guy, the transporter buffer buff, especially with all the transporters in the back that he was working on. Kind of reminds me of a guy working on like video game machines. He's got all the different ones back there, or a lot of different, physical media machines. Kyle.
Question about that too, because it was brought up when I was on Infinite Diversity on BQN recently. Could that have been Mr. Adventure from Star Trek 3? Do you remember when Uhura puts the transporter tech into the closet, and because he was always complaining about adventure, he wanted an adventure.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Funny.
It's interesting. That is interesting. I
got to give the crew of Infinite Diversity their props. They came up with that, but
Nice.
I think it's a point worth bringing up because maybe because he allowed that to happen, he was just ended up being a transporter tech his entire life.
A couple other things I thought was kind of interesting and funny. I love that the Gavin guy was a thing, the single rider guy, and I've done this a lot on attraction rides. I've been the single rider so I can get through the line quicker. And I love the fact that he just got sucked right into it, being a part of the Phoenix, the pilot, and then he called himself Captain Gavin. That was great.
Quick question. I want both of you on that real quick too. Do you wish they would have let him go? Like not have caught him, and he could have just shown up randomly through episodes of Lower Deck all season in that Phoenix?
That's still a possibility. I think that would be great. That's still a possibility. So
that's funny.
We noticed that in the Orville season 3, the Orville got a retrofit. It looks like the Cerritos did too. Did you notice? It looks pretty badass.
Well, it sort of has like a trim around it, and I really like it.
Some little extra like light siding as well. I noticed kind of very Tron-y. It's kind of cool. So I don't know if you guys noticed this, but all the shuttles had names of national parks, and the shuttle that they flew and crashed into the Cerritos was actually called the Joshua Tree Shuttle, which I thought was really cool. But I think that's a little bit in the trivia too. But I love that they're kind of doing these callbacks to stuff that's happening in California and the California national parks and such.
Yeah, one callback, like when Carol Freeman was describing, well, there was this, undercover operation, total chain of command, wearing the black. And I love that callback too.
So special guest here, Kyle. Yes.
One of the little trivia thing. Did you guys notice the change in the opening credits by chance?
I did not.
I don't remember. No.
The scene in the opening credits where they run away from the Borg battle, they've added the crystalline entity into that battle now.
I thought it was always there.
No, it wasn't there in the first couple of seasons.
Huh.
Interesting. Guys, some guy kind of important, really voiced by James Cromwell. How cool is that to hear his voice, Amy?
So much fun. And yeah, he's like, wait, I forgot something. And then Steppenwolf, carpet ride.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so I found a great article. Normally, they kind of talk about certain points of the show and discuss it and bring it up and give the review. But this particular article, and I thought we'd take a little bit different angle to this first episode because of so many callbacks, so many little Easter eggs. I'm going to bring some of this to play here, and then I want to get your take on some of your favorite stuff here. So the first one, of course, we get the fun historic Bozeman. A lot of little fun there, including a beverage stand called Thirst Contact, which I thought was really funny. Nods to the film include Crash and Burn Bar, which is apparently famous for the one-song jukebox, playing Ooby Dooby by Roy Orbison. The Vulcan survey ship, which landed in Bozeman, is turned into a First Contact fun zone. The goal of the Lower Decks was to hijack a replica version of Cochrane's Phoenix in Ride the Phoenix theme park ride. And of course, as you mentioned, Amy, we got the Steppenwolf song Magic Carpet Ride in there with a holographic Cochrane, which I thought was great. And also another reference-rich moment was the montage scene, as you had just brought up, Amy. Captain Freeman describes how she was exonerated. Her exciting story featured an elite covert Starfleet team led by Captain Morgan Bateson, the same captain who came forward in time from the late 23rd century to the 24th century in the USS Bozeman from the TNG episode Cause and Effect. Bateson and the USS Bozeman went on to serve in the 24th century Starfleet. The USS Bozeman was referenced in both generations and is mentioned in dialogue and seen in a graphic in the stellar cartography that also confirmed Captain Bateson is still in command and first contact in the Battle of Sector 001. While Bateson had no lines in Lower Decks, in TNG, Bateson was one of the show's first famous cameos played by Kelsey Grammer. I love that this is a thing, Amy.
Yes, I did not make that connection that it was the Bozeman from Cause and Effect. Oh my gosh, that makes me love it even more.
Bring Kelsey back. We also got Commander Tuvok, doing his pack-led Tell Me the Truth Vulcan mind meld little screenshot there. But the music, the language that I always love is the language of food. And I love the fact that we get Cisco's Creole Kitchen. And of course, the restaurant was first seen in DS9's episode Homefront, of course, owned by Joseph Sisko, Benjamin Sisko's father. And I don't know if I can handle it, guys. Ketracel White hot sauce. Of course, a play off the Dominion's Ketracel White that they were addicted to. And Boimler couldn't handle it, but Mariner obviously could. We had a lot of stuff mentioned in the Federation news updates here, guys. I don't know if you caught any of this stuff here, but we had, first of all, Captain Edward Jellicoe from the TNG episode Chain of Command, and his hard-ass ways have to continue as he banned the Zebulon sisters, famous for their choo-choo dance and follow-up choo-choo dance from the Starfleet vessels. The sisters had previously performed on the USS Cerrito in the Lower Decks episode Terminal Provocations. So Admiral Jellicoe still being a hard-ass, basically. Also, sports shout out. The Skrull also provide game results for the London Knights, a future baseball team first mentioned in Deep Space Nine, and the crowning of the new Stratagema Grandmaster, a game introduced in TNG peak performances. And finally, FNN reports and this is my favorite, guys. The FNN reported a country stampede where dozens of teams were injured while rushing the stage at a Sonny Clemens concert, a.k.a. LQ. Sonny Clemens was a 20th century country singer awoken from suspended animation in TNG's The Neutral Zone. Amy, he became a rock star.
That is like the deepest cut ever. Come on, bringing back Sonny. Who would have even thought?
And of course, we get a throwback to the outfit that Boimler's wearing. Looks very Picardish there at the vineyard. The hats that was it Tendi and I'm sorry, what is his name? The engineer guy,
Rutherford.
Rutherford. They're wearing what Zephyr Cochrane was wearing. So I wanted you guys to kind of pick some of your favorites here off these, Easter eggs and message here. My favorite, of course, is the LQ Sonny Clemens. That's my favorite. But Kyle, what are some of your favorites here?
I love the initial fake out idea that we were going to see Picard right at the beginning with Boimler, where they're at the vineyard and you thought, they're going Picard and we're going to see that. I love that. I'm like you. I love the fact that we had the Tuvok invasive questioning style. Yes. Also, when Kevin, you didn't mention this, but what I liked was Rutherford's fashion sense with the Jake Sisko sweaters going on.
Yes. Yes. Good call. Amy, did you have some favorites here?
Yeah, I absolutely laughed out loud when I saw the ticker at the bottom with the Stratagema contestant winner. Yes. Totally loved that. And I was like, I've got to pay attention to this ticker and what this news lady's saying. So that was really, really fun to see that. And I'm also going to comment on Cisco and Rutherford's sweater choice. And I will share a little Cirroc Lofton moment from STLV. It's one of my crowning moments in all of my Star Trekdom. So yeah, this episode dropped at STLV, and the next day, Friday, I went up to Cirroc Lofton, who plays Jake Sisko in Deep Space Nine, and was talking to him. And he's like, yeah, they did a highlight of Cisco and with the sweater. And we were laughing about it. And I love Rutherford's line. Well, it could be more asymmetrical. Okay. Hilarious. But what I'm like so excited about is that because I have seen Cirroc so many times and I've been to so many conventions this past year, if you think about, I talked to him last year at the convention, on the cruise, at Chicago, and now again. So like 4 times in 1 year.
He knows you.
Yes, he does. So I'm leaving, checking out Sunday morning. He gets in the elevator, looks at me and was like, hey, Amy, Cirroc knows my name, you guys. I'm just saying.
Nice.
So,
oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. But that was I laughed at that, Rutherford and wearing the sweater and the Ketracel hot. That was amazing to turn that into hot sauce.
Okay, let's talk about that real quick. We got some more episode trivia and Easter eggs here. So the bottle of hot sauce is shown on the table. It's labeled Ketracel White Hot, 17 million Scoville heat units. That would make it about 10 times hotter than ghost peppers. I'm out, guys. Anyone else? Yeah. Kyle, would you handle this?
I was out. You said ghost peppers. I'm like,
Amy, are you a hot pepper person?
Oh, nope. That would be me with Boimler, face down, sweats. Yeah. And Mariner, she did like 6 shakes of that.
Yeah, she did. She kept shaking that in. And she's like, ooh, got a little tang. Also, another thing that was mentioned in the broadcast was that the little boy that solved Fermat's last theorem, this was mentioned in Star Trek The Next Generation, The Royale, 1989, by Picard, who worked on it in his spare time. And in Star Trek Deep Space Nine Facets, 1995, where Dax says that a former host had a most original approach to the proof. Deep cuts. Oh, my God.
I was very happy to see that. I was like, oh, yeah, because, the math teacher in me.
That's right, yeah. In the vineyard, Boimler is approached by Genevieve, who is wearing a white blouse, dark red bonnet, and carrying a basket of grapes. She looks a lot like the Sun-made Raisin Girl. Her image has been on the box of raisins for over a century. And as I mentioned earlier... Nope, go ahead.
I really liked when we saw that, and it was zooming in, and you saw from Picard, the grape pickers.
Yes.
That was from
right.
Picard. I'm like, very good.
Mr. Pickard. And of course, one of the shuttles on the ground has the name Pinnacles. That would refer to Pinnacles National Park in Central California. Other shuttles shown include Death Valley, Yosemite 2, and Joshua Tree, all national parks in California. One shuttle shows Redwood. So I thought that was really cool. A little shout out to California parks there. And also, I kind of noticed this too, and I loved it. The explosion of the Pakled planet is reminiscent of the explosion of the Klingon moon Praxis in Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. Even the graphics of the aftermath are similar there. So that was pretty cool. So, okay, guys, any other comments or reactions to this episode? Kyle?
I got to ask you both because I'm curious. Were you a little thrown by the whole FNN thing just because you don't expect to see something like that in Star Trek?
Yeah, like a news network type thing. I was trying to remember, did we see something like that in the Kelvin universe movies? I felt like there was something that was newsworthy, but I could be remembering wrong. What about you, Amy?
Well, I'm sort of used to seeing it. I mean, we saw in Picard,
That's right. We did see news in Picard. Yeah.
I mean, he was even going to be interviewed, and they had, the Mars explosion and everything with that. So
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
That's a good point. I had one other thing too. I just want to say how much I love the opening with Mariner and her father, and then like the other admiral comes up, and she's like, "Oh, hey, Uncle Les," and then they have the conversation about not leaving things their kids can throw around.
And I liked how all the planners had Alcar things on them.
And
what about you, Amy?
Kyle, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what kind of extended warranty do these screens have on them? Because, I mean, you got to think, buy one, get one free, because the way she was going through.
I'm sure they can just replicate them, but yeah, it's still a pain in the butt to go and connect them again, you know?
Yeah, rehanging them on the wall, you know, that's all I'm saying.
Did you have any other comments on this episode, Amy?
No, I really did like the theme of Trust Starfleet. And I know it can be difficult when you're in this lower decks. You don't have the information. You know, they didn't know that there was this undercover ops, you know, out to save Freeman. So I really, really did. And it was just throughout. Trust the process. Trust Starfleet. Starfleet's going to do right. Starfleet's always after the truth. Like, come on, Mariner, get on with it. And I'm wondering if that's going to be like sort of foreshadowing. Is she going to stay with Starfleet? How can you stay if you're not trusting?
I think that was also a little message to fans, because if you think about it, the way Boimler went about it is how we're used to seeing people do in Star Trek, going around the system a little bit when you have admirals in place and stuff like that. And so we're not used to seeing like Starfleet coming together with a plan outside of your current core of whoever's starring in whatever show, you know, so, and putting the lower decks in a position where they don't know all the information was kind of interesting to see them pretty much fail at what they were trying to do, because everyone that is in charge is taking charge and putting a plan together and working together. So that was great. I'm glad you brought that up, Amy. That's a good point. Yeah. Kyle.
One other thing about this episode, guys, and I'm curious to be great. I see in Brad Boimler's future a book called I've Been There, because Boimler's been in a lot of places that other people don't want to go, including certain luminescent space bugs now.
We're going to have a little extended conversation about Boimler in the next away mission, because I want to get your guys' opinion on something. So with that said, guys, let's go ahead. We're going to head into the break here and let you know what other great shows here
are coming to you on the network.
We'll get that Warp Core for Kevin fixed here shortly, but here is what else is coming on the Fandom Podcast Network.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blooded Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato. Are we back?
You're back. We were frozen. We were on
Couch Potato Theater.
These radiation waves are messing with scanners and everything. We were in the middle of the ad, Kevin. You had frozen up. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, here's what you can find on the Fandom Podcast Network.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blooded Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our fandom flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. The True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe. Union Federation, our Star Trek, and the Orville show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. Please visit our friends on the BQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom. All right, welcome back to Union Federation. We are discussing Lower Decks, and we just covered episode 1 of season 3, Grounded. And now we're going to hit away mission number 2. We're going to discuss episode 2, The Least Dangerous Game. All right, Star Trek Lower Decks, episode 2 of season 3, Least Dangerous Game. Episode aired September 1st, 2022. Amy, would you like to give us the episode mission log synopsis?
Yes, and how funny is that title? You would expect the most dangerous game. Of course, Lower Decks, the least dangerous game. Well, in this episode, it opens with the 4 ensigns playing Batleth and Linux, the Klingon version of Dungeons and Dragons, with a simulated Chancellor Martok acting as DM. The brief session sets up the 2 main plots of the episode. While Mariner is tired of having Ransom looking over her shoulder, Boimler's cautious, take-no-chances approach to life begins to cause him problems. Ransom, Billups, Rutherford, and Mariner are assigned to help the Planet of the Week repair their space elevator. That was funny. Ransom, to prompt Mariner into rebelling, assigns the engineers to planet-side diplomatic duties, which is fun for them until it isn't, while he and Mariner attempt to conduct repairs. Meanwhile, Boimler decides to reenact the film Yes Man by agreeing to everything, which inadvertently results in him volunteering to become prey for a large hulking predator named K-Ranch.
Kyle, you've just rolled a 3. You will now be a dentist.
For life, mind you. For life.
Oh, this was a lot of fun, guys. And it was so good to get Martok being Dungeons and Dragons, but it's a Ferengi knockoff version, which I thought was great. Amy, what were your first reactions to this episode?
Yeah, I literally was looking at that going, this is the VCR Klingon game. And who here owns it? Because I have a copy.
Nice. I remember that.
But do you have the expansion packs? That's the more important
I know.
question.
I need the Gowron expansion pack. What a super fun episode. And I like the pairings. We don't normally get to see Boimler and Tendi working together. So I really liked how Mariner and Rutherford were off with Ransom and Billups, and we got Boimler and Tendi working together. I thought that was really nice. It made it fresh. The comedy is hilarious, especially when Boimler's getting chased and then Captain Freeman's walking and K-Ranch stops. Thanks for the mimosas. Oh, come on. That is just too cute.
Great. Yeah. Kyle, your first reactions to this episode.
I absolutely love this episode. So many great little moments in it. Obviously, kind of you got the Predator thing going on with Ranch. And I love the fact that when Boimler explains what's going on to the captain, she's like, oh, level 3 security team. It's like, oh, it's Cranch? Cancel that. He's such a great guy. I love that. I'm with Amy, and I hope this is something that kind of continues the season because of the Mariner situation with Ransom, the mixing up of different things. I love the shout out to Star Trek 2009 in this. Once again, a show referencing that. I thought that was great. And, just so many fun things. And this is one of those Lower Decks episodes that just mixes it up just enough and you have fun with it. Kevin, I just want you to know you do keep your belly button covered for the rest of the podcast too.
But is it an outie or an innie?
Well, if you've gone swimming, you know. One of the things that I have a big question about, because I don't remember if there was a reference to it, and I do not want to ever see one of these concerts like ever, is Shaq's Bedorn crying concert. Was that ever referenced before?
I don't know. Nothing I'm aware of.
I don't know. That was pretty funny. Oh my God. Yeah. What's his name? Cranch, voiced by Nolan North. He also does Lars Lundy, which I thought was funny. I was loving Cranch. I love this so much. That guy just cracked me up, and he takes the selfie. After he does that, I thought that was really, really funny. Klingon D&D. Please let this be a thing to keep continuing. This is great. And I got to imagine we had, of course, J.G. Hertzler as Martok return for this, guys. I can only assume how much fun that recording session must have been for him. And he's got such a distinctive voice. The stuff that was coming out of him that you normally wouldn't see, you know, whether it was rolling something high or low, or, you know, at the end, like mentioning, you know, buy the expansion pack. But Ferengi black market tax not included. So things like that I thought was great.
Yeah, one thing that I loved was that his voice was so Gowron and angry, and Gowron, how many players? And he was able to switch that, you know, like you're saying, buy the expansion pack. Like he was this moderator, but then still Gowron, hilarious. And then the
Martok.
callback almost to break the fourth wall, that it's like, well, you would think Chancellor Gowron would be too busy, you know, running the Empire. How did he have time to do this? Hilarious.
Yeah. He was great as Martok. It made me miss the character from Deep Space Nine, because he had some wonderful moments in Deep Space Nine, and I just love that. Okay, so the thing that really made me laugh, guys, was Captain Vendome, the Bolian, and finding out that he got basically fast-tracked to become captain, and Boimler thought everyone was joking. But I love the fact it was the reason, because a temporal rift turned the previous captain into a baby. I thought that was so funny. Because temporal rifts in Star Trek have been wonderful kind of vessels for very serious stuff happening. But I want to find out where this little captain baby is. I just find that funny. And that he also decided to have a whole Bolian crew. That was funny. Boimler, just going to throw this out here right now, guys, and we'll get into this more later. If he is going to advance, yes, trying new things, saying yes to new things is good, but the dude has got to stop screaming. Even the Dolphins called him a drama man. Got to get that under control. And Cranch, he's a chromosapoid hunter. I want to see more of this. And also, Amy, look out next year. I know someone is going to cosplay Cranch.
It will be interesting to see how they pull that off. Kyle.
One of the things I like, I need more of the Dolphins. I love the Dolphins. We need an episode dedicated to the Dolphins on lower decks.
Well, and they have their own etiquette. Like, don't jump in with your shoes on. That's rude. Like, I love that sort of, you know, when you walk into someone's house, are you a shoe on, shoe off type of person? Obviously, the Dolphins are a shoe off.
Oh, very much so. The other thing, too, is I loved it when Cranch finally catches Boimler, and the whole, no, you got to zigzag a little more, move around, don't be such a target, because you know the prey always turns into the hunt, tries to think they can turn it into the hunter, and you got to stick a move, and all that little advice, and then Boimler passes up. Oh, one more for my friends.
I know. Well, I have some notes for you. Oh, come on, that's funny.
And I liked how what's his name, Commander Jack Ramson's abs were referred to as lava tubes. Your lava tubes are perfect. Well, mine are not, but they're there. Okay, guys, I want to get into the next segment here. I found an article done by who is it here? Anthony Pascal. I think this is of Trek Movie, and I want to bring a couple things up here. First of all, they have some great stuff referring to some random stuff in the show, stuff that we can bring up. And one of them was Cranch was inspired by Tosk from Deep Space Nine's Captive Pursuit, one of my favorite episodes of all time for obvious reasons, although he definitely has a few Hirogen traits, who, of course, were the hunter species in Voyager that created a bunch of stuff, problems for the Voyager crew there. And I also noticed this, too, that it was referenced at the Jim Carrey movie Yes Man. If you haven't seen it, he decides to say yes to everything, and it takes him on an adventure. Well, I noticed this reference, that Boimler storyline is reminiscent of George Costanza in the Seinfeld episode The Opposite, as noted as an interview by Mike McMahon and Jack Quaid. And I don't know if you've ever seen this episode, Amy. Did you ever watch Seinfeld at all?
Oh, yeah. I know exactly. Yeah.
George Costanza has always been the lovable loser. And one episode he decides to do opposite of everything. And it takes him on quite an adventure. And it's probably, I think, one of my favorite episodes of that one. And I really, really enjoyed that. There's some very funny laugh lines on here. I thought it was wow, psychic baby, evil computer, overkill. That was a funny line from Mariner because they. Did you guys have any other fun comments or anything that jumped out at you that you enjoyed, Amy?
Well, I think the Ransom finally admitting, yeah, you got to do your job. He's a better diplomat. Rutherford and Billups definitely should have been fixing the space elevators, which was a funny thing throughout. But I liked the payoff of Ransom's physique saving the day, because how many times have we seen him do a squat or a push-up or, always about the exercise and stuff. So I actually really did like the payoff for Ransom in this episode.
That's a good point. And the relationship between Ransom and Mariner do kind of come to a new understanding, which I thought was good. And I'll bring that up again too. Kyle, was there any other things, any other fun moments, any other comments, anything like that before we kind of get to the Boimler discussion?
Well, again, I love the whole chemistry between Mariner and Ransom, because I like how they're playing up where they're maybe going to learn a little something from each other before this is all said and done. And I thought that was fun. Again, I'm going to throw back to, I love the reference at Star Trek 2009 where she jumps out of the orbital elevator. But I love how they play it up even more. She gets so far, and then what she has to do to get back up to that level. All of a sudden, there's a climbing wall there just randomly.
I thought it was funny too that we get to see like non-command people go down and try to deal with the new culture, which was the Delanians, the wellness crazed aliens who need a fix for their stuck orbital lifts. I thought that was kind of funny that these people kind of reminds me of what was the episode, Amy, where you get all those attractive looking people. It was the first season, and Justice, thank you. Yes, and Wesley Crusher breaks something, and he's going to be sent to death for it. I thought that was kind of funny. But I want to talk to you guys about Boimler here, and also character development of our characters in season 3 here. They all kind of had their own little quirks and going forward and stuff, but we're kind of starting to see a little bit of development here. But I want to talk about Boimler here, because he just says, "Today I am the new Boimler. I am bold Boimler." And this is after Tendi suggests Brad try a new approach. He begins to Vendome his life by taking all opportunities, starting with a very physical game of spring ball with some bros. And of course, the Bajoran Dirge Choir with Shax. And of course, getting into a fun, friendly game of cat and mouse with Cranch, where he just decides to be the prey. And of course, he does take a spear to the shoulder, which I thought was interesting. But that whole scene was very, very funny. But one of the things that has kind of bugged me with this series is Boimler. Is he does take things so calculated, and he doesn't seem to take a lot of risks. And now in this episode, he's starting to do it. I did mention I'm tired of his screaming a lot. He's got to stop that if he wants to kind of take a command presence here. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on character development overall of our wonderful Lower Decks characters, and also zero in on Boimler here. What do you want to see from him, Amy?
You know, when they have introduced us to Boimler and the more I see of him, I really peg him. Remember the episode Tapestry?
Yes.
When Picard goes back and Picard was ensign and he's like, what can I do to get command? And he's talking.
He's taking everything too careful. Yeah.
Yep. Too careful.
Yep.
And I see Boimler as Picard was in that episode. Too calculated. He's always going to play it safe. And so maybe we're going to have this transition where he realizes I'm going to miss out on a bunch of stuff, just like Picard did. Like, if I change this changes me. So Boimler is at this point where he's going to be changing himself, and hopefully better, where he's making those calls to take the risk and just go with the flow. I love Tendy's like, he's like, my new plan is to say yes. And Tendy's like, that's still a plan. You know?
Yeah.
Throw the plan out.
Kyle, what do you want to see from Boimler? What do you think's been happening?
I actually like how this episode does change things up. Obviously, he still needs a lot of maturing and experiences to go from. But I really think Boimler, at Lower Decks, as much as it is Mariner's show, it's also Boimler's show. And I think it's really about the growth of these two characters as they go forward. And on the Boimler side of things, you're seeing him gain a little bit more self-confidence, maybe not be quite this so conniving about everything and being so by the book. And you're seeing that change, but he still has a lot of confidence issues and not quite sure how to deal with things. So I'm really looking forward, and I'm hoping they continue to develop that and we see him grow as that. But I have another thing with Boimler too that I want to bring up too, because have either of you by chance been following Jack Quaid or Ethan Peck's social media of late?
Tell us, Kyle.
Because we have a new bromance within the Star Trek universe, as Boimler has been born. And it is promised that we will be exploring the brotherly relationship between Boimler and Spock in the upcoming Lower Decks Strange New Worlds crossover. But however, Ethan Peck and Jack Quaid have developed this friendship in real life as well. And they are doing some very fun things on social media. And Tawny Newsom, who voices Mariner, on her Twitter says, "This is all legit. I was there when it was born, and it's going to be a wonderful thing."
Looking forward to that.
Wonderful.
That's going to be a crossover, probably in Lower Decks in animation form, I assume, right?
I think it's supposed to be one. Each show is going to get an episode of it. So I don't know how they're going to quite pull this off.
So we're going to possibly see live action versions of Lower Decks characters in Strange New Worlds, is what you're saying?
It is very possible we could have a Jack Quaid appearance on Strange New Worlds.
That would be fun to see. Now, I want to, before I get into trivia here, Kyle, you brought up something that falls into this kind of character development discussion, and I wanted you to bring this up.
Yeah, this is a conversation we dove into a little bit on the Infinite Diversity episode I was on, but I want to bring it up to you guys because I think it's quite interesting. Concerning Mariner, and having gone back and rewatched the very first episode of Lower Decks and seeing how this character has grown, I know a lot of people in the first season were not Mariner fans. They didn't find her likable. They didn't find her sympathetic. I want to ask you guys if you felt like, has Mariner become a little bit more sympathetic, especially with this season premiere episode and seeing what she went through to try to rescue her mom? And then we see where she's put up with Ransom. Do we have some sympathy for her, for the trials that she's going to go through with Ransom? Have they managed to make this character more likable and sympathetic since how she came across in season 1? And I'm curious to see what you guys think on this, because I have some thoughts, but I want to hear what you guys have to say first. So, Amy?
Yeah, I think she is more relatable. At the beginning, she was just always going off. In this episode, we're actually seeing her try. She's trying to persevere. She's trying to follow Ransom and not go off on her own. And she did get much further than she did in season 1 and season 2 before she, puts on the suit and does a beyond dive. So I think that growth is slow. I also really like the support and sort of push from her friends to get her more quote unquote Starfleet. Like when Boimler was like, I think this is going to be really good for Mariner to be working with Ransom, so they've got this family feel of support and trying to get her to where she needs to be truly in Starfleet, which, echoes from what we saw last week. Is she going to trust the process? Is she going to trust Starfleet? Is she going to trust Ransom to give the correct orders?
Yeah, she's always had kind of a selfish guidance, if that makes any sense, I think. And I feel like since she's been coming closer to her with her crew, she's been listening to them more. But I think also Mariner is a victim of circumstance, because I can't imagine having a captain be your mother, and then having an admiral father so close by, and then having someone like Ransom, who is very self-absorbed, not necessarily the best leader, and now having to kind of deal with that. But so I think that in this episode, we kind of might see a learning curve for both Ransom and Mariner. I think Mariner has it in her to be a good captain, but I think that she needs to step outside her comfort zone a little. Also have a little more faith and understanding with her crew members. She knows like everyone's strengths and stuff, but when it came to, hoping to rely on Boy.
Okay, Kevin is frozen up again. We apologize. It's California heat wave, and it is definitely affecting the internet there. I'm going to give my thoughts a little bit on Boimler until Kevin pops back in. And one of the things that we saw for the first time in the season premiere episode was her and her parents together in the same room. We have not seen that in Lower Decks. Kevin, you're back. You froze up a little bit on us. Kind of rewind just a little bit on your thoughts on Boimler.
I was just going to say that I'm really excited to see if he's going to learn from this type of situation and experience that he had, to step out of his comfort zone and not like plan everything to the T, and learn from others, and to stop screaming.
Yeah. And you were also going on about Mariner as well with her relationship with Ransom.
Yeah, I think that is going to be interesting, because I think they're going to both learn from each other, which they did at the end of this episode. Mm-hmm. I think Ransom, I want to see him become less one-dimensional. He's funny because he does his thing and his shtick, but it kind of reminds me of that space captain in Futurama that had the big ego and the very short skirts, whatever that character's name was.
Yeah,
I want him to also mature and learn something being a commander and a leader as well. If he stays one-dimensional, it won't work.
Yeah. As I was saying before, one of the things I found interesting, Kevin, too, was with this season premiere episode, was the first time we've seen Mariner and her parents on the screen at the same time, existing in the same room. And I think that was really kind of a wake-up call for her to have that conversation with both of them in person, because I got a feeling she doesn't get that a lot. And
that's a good point. Yeah.
And so then to have her be with Ransom, who we know she has a pretty cantankerous relationship with from prior seasons, but I'm like you, Kevin. I think actually both characters can develop from that, and I really think this is going to be a very key thing throughout the season of Lower Decks, is elevating Boimler, Mariner, and a few of our other characters up another level. And this is something Mike McMahon actually does very well. He's done it very good with Rick and Morty and some of his other shows. So I think he's doing the same approach here, and I'm really interested to see how our characters change and develop through the season. This might be the biggest change in them in any season we've had of Lower Decks so far.
A couple little trivia things I want to mention was that the USS Inglewood, which was Vendôme's ship, is also a California class, and that Inglewood is another city in California, which I thought was funny. It's actually a place where the Lakers used to play all the time, the Forum concert venue. I've been there many, many times in Inglewood. So yeah, Another little thing, by the way, the belly button thing, in case you guys are wondering. The belly button incident with the Dulanians is most likely a reference to Gene Roddenberry. Let me read on. In a comment from an interview that is more, I guess, what do you call it? Apocryphal? Apocryphal, saying that right? He claims that NBC censors wouldn't allow him to show a navel on an actress in an early episode of Star Trek. Later, when filming the pilot for Genesis 2, he had Mariette Hartley fitted with a second prosthetic navel, giving her 2 belly buttons in spite of the earlier censor. I thought that was pretty funny. So yeah, maybe that was a thing. So there you go.
Oh, Gene.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and hit segment here and give our final thoughts and any additional comments on these episodes. All right, guys, these are both fun episodes for different reasons. Of course, they had a lot of throwbacks in Easter eggs, which we love with Lower Decks. But I do have a question for you guys, in addition to your final thoughts here. There was some criticism of this show when it first came out that there might have been too many throwbacks, too many Easter eggs. I was not one of those. I would say give me all of it. Amy, give me your thoughts about that. What do you think? Are you enjoying it? Are they doing it well?
Yeah, I want to see all the throwbacks. Give them to me, Easter eggs, minute after minute.
They are answering our questions that we are like, where's Mr. Bozeman? What happened to Sonny? Did he continue playing guitar?
Exactly. Like, they are so amazing and they fit right in. And if you don't catch it, like I didn't catch, the one that you mentioned. Bozeman. I was fine. It was still funny. If you don't catch it, it doesn't ruin the story. And so, yes, I'm definitely give it to me for sure. I thought that these episodes, as you said, Kevin, were so different, but yet still have that same flavor of fun. They're fresh. They're new. They take these characters and pair them up differently. We are getting some development. We're, continuing this story. It's sort of that, 2-piece episode or season not hangover. Cliffhanger. Yes. Thank you. So we got that. So it's like, it's a real show, even though it's just 30 minutes. So I am really enjoying it. Again, I was a slow start, but I am absolutely loving Lower Decks.
Kyle, I think the writers are telling us something, and the rest of Star Trek. Not only are we having a great time writing these episodes, but be careful. We just might make that canon.
I think that's definitely the case. And two, I just want to say Amy is still living at Star Trek Las Vegas. She was thinking Hangover instead of Cliffhanger. But no, one of the things that I'm really loving, and when you talk about the criticism early on of Lower Decks compared to now, is I think it was something that I've talked about with some people with Lower Decks. I think those early episodes, they were trying to find the right balance of Star Trek action compared with just the comedy that Mike McMahon was used to doing with like Rick and Morty and some of his other shows. And I think when he had the Easter eggs early, they were kind of more of hit you over the head with these Easter egg kind of things. And now I think they're written so much smarter because they've gotten into their groove now where they slip these things in and it's natural, or they kind of almost hit them to make you want to go back and rewatch it. So you make sure you're catching all these Easter eggs. I think they're being handled much more intelligently and just fitting more within the writing of the story as they're doing these Easter eggs. And I think it's brilliant. And I think it's so much fun. But what I like too is they're not relying on them for story either. They're still writing their own stories and incorporating these fun moments. And like you said, Kevin, answering the really hard questions we've been waiting for Star Trek for so many years now.
What I like is that they're paying attention to past Star Trek and asking the question, what if this was still a thing? What if this character lived? What if this character continued on with their life? Because we never get to always go back and revisit these wonderful one-shot characters or moments or stuff like that. In that, I got to be honest with you, I think Lower Decks is doing the best job of creating this continuity within Star Trek and the Federation and all these characters, because the live action stuff and the movies can only do a certain amount of stuff to kind of stay within their circle or their sandbox without it being ridiculous or like, what are you trying to do? But with Lower Decks, that's their shtick in on top of us falling in love with these characters and seeing what's going to happen, because they can get away with certain things that our normal command crew people that we love in these Star Trek series probably can't do or get away with. And it's just, I love all the connectivity between all these stories, the connective tissue, and like you, Amy, just give it to me. Bring it all.
Go ahead, Amy.
So did you guys know that there's a ready room for Lower Decks?
There is a ready room, like on the ship
app,
somewhere?
on the Paramount on the Paramount Plus app. There's a ready room for Lower Decks. So out of these two episodes,
you mean a
they
TV
have
show?
one
Yeah.
hosted by Will Wheaton.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. So again, out of those two episodes that we've covered, they have one ready room, and it's creator Mike McMahon and Don Lewis, who plays Captain Freeman. They were the guests, and Will Wheaton interviews them. Another great show.
That means
they're
that
having the ready rooms for Lower Decks. I don't think it's every single time, because they didn't have one for episode 2.
That means they're probably dropping up on the Paramount Plus YouTube channel then, because I have forgotten to look there since Lower Decks has come out. I usually do it during the live action shows, and we've had segments regarding that. So thank you for the reminder on that. Those must be fun.
Yeah.
Kyle.
I wanted to compliment you on talking about how Lower Decks is becoming like the glue show, connecting a lot of tissue and stuff like that. And it reminds me, Kevin, because I think they're starting a trend with that, because we have another major tentpole franchise who's got a show that they just started up right now that's kind of doing the same thing, and that's She-Hulk with the MCU. It's kind of becoming a little bit of a glue show and tying in some different random things from the MCU. And I'm wondering if they didn't pull a little. I didn't know. I'm wondering now, did they pull a little inspiration from Lower Decks when they were writing this? So
that's a good point. Yeah, the She-Hulk, which is kind of a comedy / legal drama. They've been throwing stuff out that's been happening within the MCU universe, just like Lower Decks has been doing with the Star Trek universe. So that is really cool. All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and let's give our final thoughts here. What have you liked so far? What have stood out for you the most of these first 2 episodes? Amy, I want to start with you.
I sort of gave my final thoughts. Go around.
Okay, Kyle.
Fun. It's the same thing I've been saying with our MCU She-Hulk show. Just a show that's fun. There's not a heaviness to it. You're just kicking in. It's a half hour of just fun and enjoyment and enjoying this franchise, this particular part of this franchise that you love. And I think Lower Decks has done such a great job of improving upon itself since it started. I think it's right there now as a staple within the Star Trek universe. Yes, it still might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I think it's hitting a lot of fun notes. And we need more of this. We need more of these shows that are just bringing the fun. And Lower Decks is doing that in spades right now.
I have been really impressed with the animation and the looks of the show. That's one thing this third season just continues to hit out of the ballpark. And I am enjoying visually everything, in addition to the writing and the humor and the throwbacks and stuff like that. But visually, this show is, I mean, when you get to watch it in a high res type of situation, it is such a beautiful show to look at. Amy?
Yeah, it's absolutely becoming one of my favorites, but whatever Trek is on, it's my favorite for the time. But it really warms my heart how much love they do give to, the classic Trek, as we call it. But then, bringing in the movies, like I love seeing that they were getting the Kelvin timeline, because they're sort of the stepchildren of the family, but we're bringing them in, and the callbacks to it, like I love the Calvin movies, all three of them. So
That's a great point. That's
yeah,
really
and
cool.
and then of course all the callbacks to TNG just makes my heart happy.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Thank you guys for listening and watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Union Federation number 146, discussing Lower Deck Season 3, Episode 1, Grounded, and Episode 2, The Least Dangerous Game. But let's open up those hailing frequencies. All right. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network's Union Federation on these Subspace channels. First of all, please subscribe to our Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel. Our episodes are dropping there, and please subscribe and please share. We'd appreciate that. Our master feed for all of our audio podcasts can be found on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can also join us on the Union Federation Podcast Facebook group. Of course, we are talking Star Trek and the Orville. Please make sure you check out our recent episodes discussing the Orville Season 3 New Horizons. We had a lot of fun with that. And of course, Union Federation Podcast is on Twitter and Instagram. If you'd like to contact us directly, you can hail us on email at unionfederation@gmail.com. My name is Kevin. I am on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. Kyle, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at AKyleW or on Instagram at AKyleFandom.
And Amy, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me over on BQN hosting Galaxy Class, which is about Next Generation, and All Good Things, which is about all of Star Trek, doing lots of different series. I am on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson and on Facebook in our Union Federation group page.
And of course, you can find BQN on Twitter and Instagram at BQN Podcast. And please also join the BQN Collectors listener group there on Facebook. And you can find Haley. She's on Twitter at Trekkie01D. In the Orb of Prophecy, let's check it out here. Next week, we have Lower Deck Season 3, Episode 3, and of course, Episode 4 following that. And then we'll come back to discuss those. Also coming up, we have Star Trek Prodigy Season 1, Part 2, premiering later this year. Amy, do we get any dates on that yet? Do we know when Prodigy's dropping yet?
No, there was not a lot of love for Prodigy there. And again, because STLV is not the official convention, I do not foresee any news dropping anytime out of STLV.
Gotcha.
They're treating Prodigy like it's Star Trek classified. Is Section 31 like jealous and they're just kiting it from us or something?
No, at Chicago, like it was there. Like we had who's the captain guy? What's his name? Come on. Not Gwen. Oh my gosh. Anyways.
We're having brain fart here.
Yes. They had him in character walking around the convention, taking pictures with him. Like there was a huge Prodigy at Chicago. So it just wasn't that well. Kate was there, Mulgrew, and she did give, I think, some hints at her panel with Chakotay and stuff like that. But outside of that, there was not much Prodigy love.
Well, hopefully we'll see a lot more in the near future, because that show is another really cool show to visually, but it's also got some great characters. So we'll see. Anyway, Amy, thank you so much and welcome back.
Thank you.
Kyle, thank you as always, sir. Much appreciated.
Always fun to be on, and looking forward to some more trips around the lower decks in the Cerritos.
Yes. All right, guys. Till next time, hailing frequencies are now closed.